So it's day 3 where you're going to look over my shoulder as I go through a power purchase agreement for solar panels, and you can see what I see and I'll explain different provisions of it. Once again, this is not legal advice, so this is for informational purposes only. If you are considering a power purchase agreement, I'm going to go through this as if I was going to put it on my roof, and I'll explain the things that I would take into consideration as an attorney who worked in finance and energy for the past 25 years. And these are things that you should be aware of and you can discuss with your own lawyer when you negotiate one of these contracts. But I am a lawyer, I'm not your lawyer, so you need to speak to your own lawyer about this. So anyway, let's get started. So this part here is fairly obvious. In order for them to put the system on your roof, you need to grant them access to your property, and it says this access right shall continue for 90 days after this power purchase agreement expires to provide the time to remove the system at the end of the power purchase agreement. So not only do they have the right to go onto your property to install this, but when the contract is up, they have up to 90 days to have access to your property to remove it. They don't have to let you know about it. It's just part of the contract. That's fairly standard. And again, this just deals with the legal rights to it. So you're saying that it's not a fixture, and that is because they own the property, and if you sell the house, if it is considered a fixture, it would belong to the buyer, but that's not the case. Actually, I think I went over this yesterday, so you can look at the prior video for that. And we'll start here where I highlighted in red. So even after you sign the agreement, their obligation to install the agreement, their obligation to install the system doesn't kick in until they receive financing, and that's a term that's in brackets, so it's in some contracts and not others. As I said, a lot of these companies are startups and they need access to capital, and that's why this is put there in brackets. It's going to be in some agreements and not others, and if they can't get financing to put this on your roof, they won't do it. If you prepay the system, it might be easier for them to get financing, but that's why it's in brackets. This other part, confirmation of the rebate tax credit availability used to calculate the monthly payments. So as I said, the Inflation Reduction Act allowed them to, because they are the owners of the system, a 30% tax credit on the cost of the system, including labor, things like that. And in some states and municipalities, you get other payments. For example, in DC, you get, I believe it's a $400 for a certain amount of electricity that is produced by the system. And on the average roof in Washington, DC, you would be entitled to about 10 of those, which would get them an additional $4,000 a year. And so their obligation to install this does not kick in until they can confirm that not only would they get the 30% under the Inflation Reduction Act under President Biden, but also potentially some state and local incentives. And if they can't confirm that, then they wouldn't have the obligation to install this. Is that relevant? Sure, because right now there's been a change in administration, and the current administration does not appear to be very friendly to solar. So this might be a clause that would be used to get out of this power purchase agreement even after it's signed if they can't get the monetary incentives that they're promised. If we go up, the warranty exhibit 2, we talked about that in I believe the episode 1, and ownership of the system. So tax incentives play a very big part of this, as we discussed. And so it says that they own the system, and that it is not a sale or lease to you, that they own the system. And why is that important? Because the owner of the system gets the credits, and if it is considered a sale or possibly even a lease, they might not get that. So this is just setting out that that's the agreement. This might be something you want to negotiate or not, depending on how concerned about you are about privacy, because they would have information about when you're using power at what times of the day. So they'll know when you're home, know when you're not, know when you're using the washing machine, the dryer, when you're watching a movie based on the amount of data generated, and they can sell that to other people. And they do own the data generated from that. So if that is important to you, that might be something that you would consider deleting in your copy of this. But as it stands, they own that. And this is just a further confirmation that all the tax credits and incentives, renewable rebates belong to them. And you can't do anything with your utility that would affect that now or in the future. So if your utility comes out with a certain program or certain incentives that you can sign up for that would give you these tax credits instead of them, you can't sign up for that, because you've agreed under this contract that those all belong to them now and in the future, and you can't do anything that would affect that, even if it would benefit you. And here we get to purchasing the system prior to the end of the contract. So as I said in a previous video, if you sell your house and you have this power purchase agreement in place that locks in the future homeowner, that might cause a problem for you. So if the agreement is in good standing, meaning you're not in default, if you are selling your house, you have the option to purchase this from them or to assign it to somebody else. If you are purchasing it from them, your right to purchase this kicks in on the 5-year anniversary of when the contract starts, which is when it starts producing power, not when the contract is signed. When it starts producing power, that's when the term starts. And on the 5-year anniversary of that, you get to purchase the system. So why 5 years? Because you get this tax rebate from the tax credit, from the federal government that's up to 30% of the installation cost. And if you don't own the system for 5 years, you would lose that credit. It's called recapture. And so they will not allow you to purchase it from them before 5 years, because they would lose that credit. And that is a big part of the calculus of whether to do this contract. Second clause is that 5 years after the anniversary, if you sell your home, you can purchase that. And why would you want to purchase that? Because a home buyer may not want to assume the contract, so you can just purchase it back for them at a price that you've agreed on in the contract. And then you sell the house with the panels, and the person who is buying your house does not have to enter into this contract, and it makes your house more marketable. Number 3 is if the provider ceases its operation or fails to provide for a substitute provider. So as I said, a lot of these companies are startups, and it's often not unusual for many of them to go bankrupt. Even some larger ones go bankrupt from time to time. And if that is the case, they can, in bankruptcy, have somebody else buy the assets and they would take over this contract. But if they can't, this provision would kick in and allow you to purchase the panels at the fair market value. And what is the fair market value? You would hire a third-party independent appraiser that is agreeable to both of you, and they would give you an estimate of what this is worth, and then that's the price you would pay for it. So the renewal, this is something that you should think about, because at the end of the agreement, and again, the draft of this says that it's 20 years, which is a very long time. That's probably something I would consider knocking down to 10 years or something like that. But it says that you have the option to renew it for up to 10 years in 2 5-year renewal periods. So your contract is up. You can renew for 5 years, then another 5 years. But this part in brackets, if this was going on my roof, I would delete this. It says that the provider also has the option to renew your PPA. And why is that? Well, if it's a 20-year contract or even a 10-year contract and they're renewing it, the roof is getting older, they're getting the benefit of selling you all this power. And what do you get out of it? Especially if they have that escalation clause in there where it goes up by a certain percentage each year. So at the end of the contract, you might be paying more than you would be paying buying it directly from your utility. So it's in their interest to renew it, but not in yours. And if you don't negotiate this at the beginning, you might be locked in at the end. And finally, when the contract is up, they will send you something to renew the contract. And don't just throw that away, because if you don't send it back saying that you are not renewing it, then they can renew it for you. And it will be at a 1-year term. And then at the end of that, they'll send you another renewal. And if you throw that away, then the contract renews again. So be sure you pay attention to that when it comes in the mail. Don't just throw it out. And let's see, selling your home. If you sell to somebody and you did not buy the system back, the purchaser is going to have to assume the PPA, and they have to have good credit. And the person buying the house has to agree to sign, in addition to the contracts for buying a house, a new agreement with the provider to assume this contract. It wouldn't just transfer automatically. They'd have to sign it and agree to it. And that's part of the deal when you sign this. If you want to sell your house, you can either buy them out or have the house buyer take this over. But again, it would have to be after 5 years. So if you bought a house and then you put this on and you're planning on selling before 5 years, you're going to have a big problem, because they would not allow you to buy it. You know, the home purchaser would have to sign to take it over, but they may not want to. So it's just something to consider. And then another way to get out of this is if you prepay for all the power remaining on the contract. So they would add up how much power the system is expected to produce, at what kilowatt hour rate you're paying for the entire rest of the term. They would get a number, give you a 5% discount, and then that's the price you would pay to pay this in full, and then you can transfer it to whoever you want. And if you do sell your house, you have to give them at least 15 days notice and let them know who is going to assume your PPA obligations, so they can look into them and run a credit check and see if they want these people to step into your shoes. So I think that's enough for today. We'll do another one tomorrow. And like and subscribe so you'll see the rest of the series of this, where you're looking over my shoulder and we're going over this contract a little bit at a time every day. I'm going to finish my coffee here, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.